Hello, and this is Saturday Morning Recorded, and I'm your host, Cohen Vogel. And for today's special guest, that's my friend, Erin Fouberg. And for your weekly tidbit of news, it's that a group of baboons is actually called a congress. Here's our special guest. Here's our special guest this week, my friend, Erin Fouberg. For your first question, it will be, how did you get into geography?
Well, my dad has to take credit for that one. He was actually a geography professor at South Dakota State University. He started the geography department there, and he studied house types like immigration patterns and where immigrants came from to the United States and the neighborhoods and the towns and things that they settled in, and then what house types they brought with them, like the architecture of towns and neighborhoods, because he grew up in St. Louis, and there's like really distinct neighborhoods that are based on different immigrant populations, and the neighborhoods look different and the houses look different. So that's what he studied. Anyway, I'm one of 5 kids, and when we were on trips during growing up, we'd take all these road trips to St. Louis and Chicago where my relatives were, and we'd have to stop in these random small towns and look at houses to make my dad happy and for his research. And he had a huge influence on all of us, because out of the 5 of us, we ended up with 2 architects and 1 geographer. So he definitely made me think about the world spatially, even if I really didn't want to. But what I wanted to do when I went to college was, I actually wanted to be a senator, and I really wanted to be responsible for solving the crisis in Northern Ireland, which was a big deal in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s. But somebody beat me to that one. And then I interned on Capitol Hill, and I really didn't want to be in politics at all. And so I took a political geography class when I was in college, and it was like finally the sky opened up and the lights shone down, and it was the way I thought about the world. So I could take the stuff I love to study, which is politics and international relations, through a lens of a geographer, and that's a perfect place for me.
Now you're a professor in geography, so what are some other careers for someone who is interested in geography?
So I highly recommend you go to the website of the American Association of Geographers and look for a part of the site that's called Careers in Geography. So jobs in geography are for people like me who might be looking for a job. We're already professional geographers, but careers in geography, you can see like all the different careers. One of the big ones, when I used to teach out in Virginia, Northern Virginia. One of the big jobs our graduates would get from that geography program was working for the CIA, working for the State Department, working in intelligence for the military, becoming an expert on a region. So you become like the expert on Southern Africa, or the expert on East Africa, or the expert on South Asia, and then really just studying and becoming the point person when kind of stuff flares up in a certain region of the world, or questions arise in a certain region of the world. Around here, if you did major in geography, your biggest jobs outside of teaching would probably be in urban planning and city planning, a lot of planning kinds of jobs. Tribes have planners, the federal government has planners, cities and municipalities, counties have planners, so there's a lot of planning jobs. Those are the big ones. But a lot of environmental jobs too. I'd have students that ended up working for like the as park rangers, especially at historic sites in Virginia when I was out there. A lot of students would intern there and then end up jobs there. And here, several students have bent more toward the environmental side of geography and have ended up as state park employees and rangers.
Now, you also travel a lot, so
I do.
What is your favorite what is your favorite place that you traveled to?
Oh, that's a tough one. I just got to take students to Cambodia and Thailand a couple of years ago, and I would have said before that, I would have said India. India is to me like a inundation of sights and smells and sounds that just is so unlike anything I'd ever experienced before, that I think India would have been my favorite place. You can really see culture in India in a way that's not always transparent around here. Just like you can read about Hinduism and think about Hinduism, but when you see India, you kind of see how palpable it is. It's like everywhere, and it's part of so many rituals on a given day that I don't think I could have appreciated without going there. So I loved that part of India. But I would highly recommend Cambodia because you can go and you can see amazing historical sites, like architectural sites, but also I think perspective is important. And like if you go to Washington, D.C., have you been there yet? So when you go there someday, you should go to the Holocaust Museum, and you can see like the history of World War II and the Holocaust, and it doesn't seem that old when you go to a museum. But in Cambodia, the killing fields, the massive genocide that took place in Cambodia was, you know, in the 1980s and 70s, and you can actually still see on the ground, you know, when you're walking on a, like kind of like the wood that's on your deck, there's like, I guess, walkways that are made out of wood, like deck wood, and you walk through these fields so you can see where thousands and thousands of people were murdered in these killing fields. But there's literally like clothing still coming up from the ground because so many people were killed there. And I know that doesn't sound really exciting, but it was, to me, just like a perspective that you can't get from reading a book. And that's what I love about traveling, is you start to appreciate, okay, people live fundamentally different than I do, but the older I get, the more I've already understood that, right? So I can read a book and I can't totally envision what it's like there, but I can probably do better than I could have in my 20s just from the experiences that I've had. But that history part and how close the history is of just the horrible things that happen in Cambodia, it just gives you pause, and it makes you see something in a way that you can't see it from a book or even from a documentary. It was upsetting and really overwhelming, but unforgettable.
And now, do you have any places that you still want to go to see?
Everywhere. I would go back anywhere I've been. I mean, I would honestly live in Cambodia, which, I mean, my husband's not all for that, and I plan to stay married, so I'm not going to live in Cambodia. But what I think, to go back to the Cambodia thing, what I think the freshness of that pain gives people like I don't know, they're just interactions are different, because you realize like how easy it is to just have hatred really divide people and cause enormous amounts of death for no reason. And in the United States, we're kind of lacking in that perspective, that just this sort of vitriol that we have for each other right now in politics could really turn really bad relatively fast. Because people in Cambodia weren't expecting that to happen, you know? And I think that just that perspective that you get from traveling to a place and just realizing like people, because of the experiences that they've had in the place, live differently. And I think just an appreciation for what you do have and an appreciation for another person's point of view is pretty incredible. But as far as places that I don't feel like I have a good grasp of, that I really need to see for myself, the biggest place would be Brazil. Like if I could go to Rio and walk through the favelas of Rio and see, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen them, where they're the really low income neighborhoods that kind of go up the hillside, and they're built like all on top of each other. I feel like if I could go to Brazil with a local, and that's the other thing, I really want to go with a local. Have a student from Northern who was a volleyball player from Brazil about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And I would love to connect with her and go to Brazil and hang out with her and just kind of walk through Rio with her and see it from a local's perspective, not as a tourist. I mean, obviously I'd be a tourist, but I really like to try and get a sense of the place, and not just consume the place, if that makes any sense. Because then I think I learn a lot more.
And then for your final question, it will be, what is your favorite book?
My favorite book? Well, I listen to a lot of books actually right now, because it's easier for me to listen to books. When I was growing up, I really liked A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I can't actually remember what I loved about that book, but I remember being compelled by it. And so to me, it's most likely the character, because my theory on books is if I read a novel and I'm 100 pages in and I don't care if all the characters died by the end of the book, like, I'm not going to finish reading the book. To me, it's about the character development. Like, I love the feeling of reading a really good novel and then you put it down because you can't finish it at night, and you go to sleep and you wake up and you're worried about them and you're thinking like, I wonder how they're doing, like, I'm so worried about them. I like novels like that. So there's a book by Lisa Wingate, and I can't remember what it's called. It's about the Tennessee Children's Home, and Before We Were Yours, that's what it's called. And it's about impoverished kids who were pulled from their home. It's based on a true story in the Tennessee Valley area in the United States in the earlier 1900s, and then they were adopted out to wealthier families. And it's a really good book because it's not quite historical fiction, you know, because it's not based on, to my knowledge, it's not based on like taking true people who lived and telling them their story in a fictionalized way. It's based on characters from a period of history. And but the author definitely did a lot of research. It's really well told and it sticks with you. And the characters are really well developed. And that's what I like in a good book.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's 30 Seconds of Nature. Here's Eva's word of the week.
Melancholy.
Here's the Take 5. And here's this week's Take 5. For your first question, are you a morning person or night person?
Morning. I wake up at 4 in the morning and my brain is like going. I can get more done before 6:30 a.m. than I can in 8 hours.
How do you like your eggs?
I like my eggs fried with the yolk broken and hard.
What's your favorite sitcom?
Ooh, probably New Girl. I really enjoyed New Girl. Yeah, New Girl was good. Also, Gilmore Girls. Also, The Office. Also, Parks and Rec. How can you not like Parks and Rec, right? My children have heavily influenced my TV viewing in recent years, as you can tell.
And then, have you ever peed in a pool?
I don't have to answer that question, do I? Not in my recollection, but I'm guessing my mother put me in swim lessons when I was like 4. I must have, because she couldn't swim, so she made us all learn how to swim. We all had to swim through like junior lifeguard, and her theory was we could all save her life that way if the need arose. But luckily, none of us ever had to figure that one out. So.
And then, if you could help an endangered species of your choice, which would you pick?
I mean, the pangolin in honor of Sophie Wieland.
Thank you. The pangolin is a wonderful animal to pick, and it has been mentioned on our show before, but you should definitely go help out the pangolin, because there are many species of pangolin, and they're all being targeted for the same reason. Their scales. Now, their scales are being taken off them and sold. Or the pangolin itself is being sold in live animal trade, which is horrible. So I highly encourage you to go help out the pangolin. For my book recommendation this week, I'm recommending this book, The Bridge Home by Padma Venkatraman. But yeah, you should definitely go read it. It's a nice little story. For my adventure this week, I tried out for the Aberdeen Central's fall play, and I made it in. So you should definitely go check that out and the performances are in early October sometime. And for a secondary adventure, I received some gifts from WWF for reaching my goal in the panda paddle, and one of them was a hat that is made completely from recycled plastic bottles. And then here in town, out at Target, I also bought these pants, which are also made from plastic bottles. And I know that there are shoes out there that are completely made of garbage. So now it's completely possible to start wearing clothes that are made from recycled materials, which are unlike these clothes, which aren't at all environmentally friendly and conscious about. But so you can start buying clothes that, are environmentally friendly and made from recycled products. And I'm your host, Colin Vogel, signing off.